I'll be kind of telling that story a little bit too of how I got into this and how he helped me and everything. So first off, welcome people. So my title there, it's Fleetwood Mac Full Time. Hope you all enjoyed that a little bit. But yeah, so really what I was talking about is that this blockchain idea is something that's very secure, and that's why it's such a big deal, and that really why it's going to have great potential in the future, right? So we'll get into that. All right, so all right, so beginning my story here, I'm going to put y'all in the shoes of Mr. Ainsley, right? So it's your first year as a headmaster at VES, and you get kind of notification that the school will be receiving a donation, and it's going to come in the form of stock shares. It's about $2.5 million, right? So that's money that can go to like new building over there, and like to pay faculty and all that stuff. So you're like super hyped, super excited. You keep listening to it, and so you find out that this is 150,000 shares of Overstock.com preferred, which is pretty usual for VS to receive shares as a donation, and usually those get turned around like pretty quickly. It's no big deal, no stress. And so that's in about December of 2020, which is like here on the stock chart right there. So prime real estate. So you find out later that this is going to take a really long time to liquidate because you're going to have to deal with this low volume exchange called T0. And so for those of you who don't really know, so trade volume, market volume refers to the number of shares traded on any particular day. So this is the trade volume at the top there for Overstock Preferred in October, about 2 months before you receive this donation. And it's at 6.5 thousand trades per day, which is pretty low. And then we have the current market volume, which is at 8.7 thousand. And so these next two is perspective, right? So this is the common stock of Overstock, the OSTK. These are stock tickers, by the way. And so the common stock is 1.87 million trades per day, and that's Apple, which is upwards of 100 million trades per day, which is just in perspective. It's a lot lesser, right? So that's going to be an issue, especially with 150,000 shares of this stuff to liquidate that at that low of a volume. It's going to be kind of difficult, and that's why it's going to take a little bit of time. And so after Mr. Ainsley was telling me all this, I've begun to think about like, okay, so like what's this T0 stuff, and like why is this a big deal? And so this is basically a exchange that runs off of cryptocurrency, and that's supported by blockchain technology, which got me thinking about what blockchain is, and I wanted to know like why VS had to sell back these shares at such a slow rate, and why anyone in their right mind would ever want to do this kind of thing, and what benefits it holds. So initially, I had some mixed ideas about cryptocurrency. I had my fair share of doubts, and a lot of that came from this idea I had that it was untrustworthy and it was subject to really high volatility and wasn't really a good investment. I thought it was immature and not very well developed. A lot of this came from like watching things online and like watching Dogecoin go up every time Elon Musk tweeted about it. But it was just kind of like weird. I was like, this can't be like a serious thing. And a lot of other people have this same idea. But I quickly learned that cryptocurrency has a lot more potential, and I'll explain why I think so. So there is fair skepticism in why people don't want to put their money into cryptocurrency. So take, for example, the market crash in 2008, where a lot of people lost their money and didn't really want to trust like banks and like real estate investments. And just as a side note, so 2008 just also happened to be when Bitcoin, that really famous cryptocurrency, got invented, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But so this like idea of this like fear of not wanting to trust like institutions was a huge deal in a lot of like older generations, like probably this generation. And so it's not as seen in younger, like in like our generation, because I was like 6 years old when that happened, so it didn't impact me as an adult. And so that's just one reason why it's kind of becoming popular now. And also the youth, just us, we kind of grew up with technology and have seen like what great things it's made. You get Snapchat, like DoorDash, that's awesome. You get apps. So I mean, we just kind of grew up with that technology and how to use it. And it's I think for all of our lives, it's become a lot more influential, and it's really just written our history so far. And of course, older generations will have a little bit of trouble keeping up with all this rapid development. So take, for example, Bill Gates, who's the co-founder of Microsoft, has kind of openly said that he doesn't want to invest in it. He doesn't think it's very reliable, even though he says it might have good potential. But even a big technology dude like him doesn't really trust it. So that's just like one thing, and I really say that's a stigma around it, and I think the technology behind it actually does support why we should use it, and gives a lot of reasons that it does have potential. So I say that we have the technology and that we should use it, just like Patrick says. So I'm going to take a moment pause and ask anyone if they have a good definition of like what they think cryptocurrency is. Like any ideas about it? Any thoughts about it? Ryberg, yes.
It's a good way for like black market criminals to move money out.
Yes. I'll talk about it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Charlie.
Like similar to how we put trust into the dollar, and so it has value. We put trust into this cryptocurrency, and thus has value. So like kind of most currencies, we give it value because we trust in it.
Right. And on like a similar note, right? Like the dollar is backed by the U.S. government, kind of how cryptocurrency is backed by blockchain technology. So it's just putting trust into the technology behind it instead of like a conventional institution. Yeah. Okay, so just common misconceptions about what cryptocurrency is. So one of those is that all cryptocurrencies are the same, which is wrong. So we got a couple, like Litecoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, that's Ripple, and they don't really have coins, which is kind of what they have on the internet. And so these aren't all the same. They all have their own interfaces and their own kind of traits, which make them unique. And like an example of this is Bitcoin is known for being pseudo-anonymous, right? So you create like a username and put that out, and that's the only information you're giving out. Like no personal information is really put online when you make a Bitcoin account. It's such a big thing that you can kind of trace back transactions and find people if you really want to. And they have different cryptocurrencies which have different levels of security. There's just like one slight difference between them. Of course, they have different kind of levels of users on them. And also, like the government does play a slight role where they have like forensic programs which kind of will detect illegal activity. And again, just certain kinds of cryptocurrencies have different levels of like how secure they are and like how well that can happen. Which brings me to my next point, and what Ms. Grunberg said, is that a lot of people think that they only use it for the black market. And so a lot of this actually came from a kind of 2010s deal, the Silk Road, which got shut down by the FBI, but basically it was just like a drug trading website. They only used Bitcoin. And so, like after that, a lot of people had the idea that cryptocurrency as a whole was only used for illegal activities, which there are some claims that up to 45% of Bitcoin transactions are used for illegal activity, which is mostly due in part to its decentralized nature and how it's kind of hard to trace transactions back to like any real person. That's why it kind of seems like a good outlet for criminals to use it. But like all things, cryptocurrency can be used for good and evil. And I mean, if you think about kind of the way cash is used, like between criminals, I mean, if it's just kind of under the table, it's not traceable, and I mean, it's kind of going to happen with any currency. But again, I mean, it has lots of potential if used for good, and so it's not all bad, really. And as detection of illegal activity technology goes up as well and develops, the use of cryptocurrency for illegal activities will also go down. And the government regulation might play a slight role in keeping that down, but like I said, it's really just kind of inevitable that this might happen. Drugs are bad, anyways. And so number 3, false. It's not too hard to get into. It's really not. I mean, just like you don't even know how to make a car to drive one, you don't really have to know the technology behind cryptocurrency to use it. And it's totally useful. It's used for products and services. You can exchange cryptocurrency and make all sorts of different kinds of trades. And some people have just gotten rich off of like just investing in it and having the price go up and then selling it. And so it has a lot of different uses, especially outside just like the stock market. I mean, it's got a lot of practical uses, and as time goes on, it'll gain a lot more kind of ground in like the real world, like using it kind of buy like a sandwich or something. Who knows? I mean, it has a lot of potential. So number 4 is that crypto is different from blockchain. And this is what I initially thought, because I saw the two kind of together, and I was like, okay, cryptocurrency is blockchain. Blockchain is cryptocurrency. Like, it's the same deal. This is odd. This is wrong. So cryptocurrency, it can exist with blockchain technology, but it can't function without it. But blockchain can work without cryptocurrency. There's a lot of different applications of blockchain technology outside of just managing transactions with digital currency. So, what is blockchain? So, it's a tricky one. Okay, so we're going to talk about cryptocurrency and the way that blockchain allows that to happen is by allowing money to be traded as if it were physical currency, right? So if I had a $100 bill and I emailed it to you, right, that's basically what's going on. Like, it's basically that kind of system, that kind of mechanism. And that would happen without like banks or transaction fees or any kind of paperwork or anything like that. And this like idea of being able to do that, of just emailing people like money without any kind of middleman, has been an idea for a really long time, and it got brought up in a 1991 research paper, but had no real world application until 2008. And there's a man named, or like a person or a group of people under the pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto, who wrote this long paper basically detailing Bitcoin and how it could be used with the blockchain system. And that main issue that was addressed was the double spend problem. And so what that is is if I physically had a $100 bill and I gave it to you in real life, I would no longer have the $100 bill. You would have it. I couldn't go spend that. I don't have it anymore. Whereas online, this is kind of different, right? So this is a painting that me and my friends made of Squirt from Nemo. You know, like from the movie, right? So if I texted you this picture, you would have the picture. I would also have the picture, and we would share. So there's no real ownership. We just both have this picture. We both have like equal ownership of it. But this doesn't really work with online currency because we can't both have that $100 bill. That kind of devalues and it doesn't really create like a real currency. It just is like something everyone can have. And so that is where Satoshi Nakamoto comes in and kind of breaks down this double spend problem by using blockchain securities, right? So his answer was blockchain. So what is blockchain? So in typical financial institutions, right, say like a bank or like Venmo, you will pay a certain amount of money for them to take care of your transactions and watch over them. So if I pay you $100, they would serve no man, and they would watch, they would record that transaction on a database, and they would share that database with the other banks and like make sure it's like permanent, and they would record it, and they'd have this kind of centralized system do that. And so that involves a lot of like copying of information and costs. It creates a lot of transaction fees to do that. And so what Bitcoin does is it does this in a decentralized way and allows it to happen with no single person or group in control of the transaction. And instead, everyone collectively sees that transaction and records it on their own personal database. And so, kind of like to explain this as Times Square as my analogy. And so, what happens is, as you give that person that $100 bill on your online platform, that transaction is displayed on all these like billboards where everyone can see it, and there's no going back because everyone knows that you did that, and there's kind of like no contradictions, and you can cross-reference to make sure that that is true. So there's kind of no ignoring it. So in that way, if I give you a $100 bill, it is recorded on the decentralized ledger, and I can no longer spend that $100 bill. So technically speaking, this works by a chain of blocks which form a database in which new information is filled into each block, which is then added to a chain in chronological order. Flawed words. And this works by a system of hashes, which are codes for digital information, which is transformed into a string of just numbers and letters. So there's a big bunch of like numbers and letters, and it's this huge code that each of these blocks has. And every time you change the block, you put new information into the block, that code changes. And once it's just full information, they just add it on to another list of codes which store all the information chronologically, which make it really easy to go back and see transactions in the past and to confirm them. And also is very secure because those transactions become permanent and irreversible unless everyone decides to change it. And with that system in place, this becomes very, very hard to hack and get into and change in any way because that would be noticed by everyone else. And so there's Clip Online, which I heard that trying to hack a blockchain is like trying to turn a processed thing like a chicken nugget back into a chicken. So it's really, really hard and like probably won't ever happen realistically. So I just think that's kind of fun, right? So that was a lot of words. So do y'all have any questions about what I just said?
What did you just say?
Yeah, so like basically in like simple terms, again, it's just being able to give money to someone and then that transaction of currency going out into the world for everyone to see and kind of becoming permanent, like big news week or something like that. I'm not sure.
Is Venmo a blockchain?
Right. So Venmo would be an example of like a middleman who like records transactions, and I think there is a fee for Venmo. Like yeah, on your bank account, there's like a 10% fee or something like that.
What are your like personal opinions on like cryptocurrency, I guess?
Like just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it has a lot of potential, and obviously there's some good and bad things about it. And I think it's going to grow a lot in the coming years, and as more people use it, I think it'll be a lot stronger and more widely trusted. And I think it's kind of underhyped, in my opinion. So I think it's a lot better than people think that would be. Yeah, Charlie?
Can a blockchain get too long? Like, if it every single time it's transacted, like another block is added, can the chain get too long to where a computer can't compute?
So, so for like Bitcoin, for example, so like the length of the chain is called the height, and so I don't remember what it is, but it's like right now it's like 700,000 blocks or something like that, and it just kind of keeps growing, and the more blocks are added onto it, the harder it gets to go back and remake all the blocks, and it does take a lot of like computing technology, which I'll talk about in a minute. Mr. Gates.
So have you invested in this yet, or will you invest in it?
So I haven't invested in any cryptocurrency yet, which is probably surprising, but I do plan to because I think it's going to grow a lot. And as the news keeps being good, I'll probably still look at investing in it. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay.
What do you like? Obviously, Bitcoin's like the one cryptocurrency. What do you think about Ethereum and like Dogecoin and like Polkadot like catching up in the near future?
As you know, I mean, I think just like with like the like length of the blockchain, like the physical blockchain, it's like Bitcoin is already ahead, and unless Ethereum and like those other cryptocurrencies can get the computing power to catch up, then I think Bitcoin will continue to be the biggest cryptocurrency out there. But I mean, there's probably potential like applications and other ones. Okay, so this brings me to my arguing point. So why is blockchain the future of the world? So one reason is it has very low transaction costs. So one study talks about distributed ledger technology could reduce financial services infrastructure costs between 15 billion and 20 billion per year by 2022. So mostly, a lot of what that's talking about is a lot between transaction costs and also just timing. If you take into account the time it takes to make a trade on the stock market, especially in high amounts of money, that's money you could be losing potentially. I mean, for big institutions, that's a really big deal. And so, with transaction costs, the way it does this is by taking out the middleman, You don't need to use Venmo if you're using blockchain, so there's no transaction fees. As comparison, like a credit card, like a wire transfer, can cost like, depending on how big it is, like up to like $25 or something. And if you're doing it all the time, it adds up, especially over an entire economy. And Bitcoin has a similar system where you can pay the miner to ensure that your transaction gets recorded, but it's at a lot lower rates, and it's not like required, so it could be free. So a non-cryptocurrency example, right? So this is Mirtz, I think, is a big shipping container company, and they're using blockchain technology to record the information that they have to deal with. They have to deal with a lot of like logistics, and so they're able to store this information safely and make sure everyone can see it. So it's like displayed everywhere, and I think it's super cool. It's also being used in elections. Like, so I think there's like 2018 Democratic election, and instead of using like voting to like traditional voting machines, they could just do it online, and it would go to a secure blockchain, which is unchangeable. And so there's just endless amounts of applications of what blockchain can be used for. So another reason for its success is really this transparency. Like I said with the shipping container example, if everyone can see what's going on all the time and it's 100% accurate and not going to change, then that decreases the mistakes and errors that humans can make, and ultimately saves money. And so this becomes a really useful tool for businesses. You just want to get that next step in the efficiency. So one last reason is it's unparalleled security, right? So in order to destroy or corrupt a blockchain, a hacker would have to destroy the data stored on every user's computer in a global network. And so one reason why it does this is because of its linear fashion in which the new blocks are added. So that this becomes a big timeline in which you can't go back, and it's not going to change in any way. And so with like the hashes, or like the codes of each of the blocks, it's structured in a way that the code on one block is added to the chain, and inside that block, it also has the code of the block before it, and like the time from when that block was added. And so it just becomes like a chain. And so you just can't like take them off or redo them very easily, especially not with like the technology people have readily available. So a second reason for the security, so let's say a hacker wanted to change the blockchain, steal everyone's Bitcoins, they would have to change their own copy of the blockchain and like change their own information inside of it. But this copy would be put up against everyone else's copy of what's going on. And so everyone else would see that copy and just kind of cast it off as like, oh, that's illegitimate, that doesn't really match the rest of ours. And so what's that, like whatever is happening in that transaction will be kind of void. And so to do this successfully, the hacker would have to change a majority of blockchains at the same time to make that the accepted chain, which would cost just insane amounts of energy and money and resources, and would plummet the stock price of Bitcoin. And so you could do that and spend a lot of money, and then you would end up with this worthless asset of Bitcoins, which no longer is valued because no one like owns it anymore. And like the machines to do this are kind of insane. Let me put a picture of them. Yeah, so this is like a facility in Siberia that mines Bitcoins, and you see these little units like processes like millions of like codes and like tries to make these codes to make these blocks to add to the chain. And this uses a lot of energy. So this is this Russian one is used with hydroelectricity, which is kind of becoming a big thing. Is how do we do this in an energy efficient way? And a lot of people say that Bitcoin mining is detrimental to the environment. However, so yeah, I'll go back. Okay, so basically, yeah. So this is like some environmental impacts of cryptocurrency, right? So they make a bunch of carbon dioxide without an atmosphere, and a lot of like just energy is used on these computers that make up the blockchain. And so a lot of the actual cryptocurrency mining occurs in China, where the regulations on energy are just kind of like free, basically. So they don't really have a big push for like environmental concerns. And so I think right now it kind of looks a little bit bad, the amount of electricity that people are using. But I think as time goes on and people get more concerned about the climate, I think that there'll be more energy efficient ways, like using solar power or that kind of thing, to mine cryptocurrency. And so it's just comparison. Money also uses a lot of energy, right? So like the banks that make up our American dollar system require all sorts of resources. The resources that make the actual paper money itself also requires resources. And so these are just things to take into consideration. Obviously, I don't think cryptocurrency will ever replace the modern system of currency that we have, but it's definitely a big alternative, and I think it's fair to take into account the current resources used in like fiat currency when considering the environmental impact of cryptocurrency. So, right, is that fair, right? Very good. So, yeah, and so that carbon dioxide is the same to like the country of New Zealand. So it's definitely a lot. So around the world, there are about 2 billion adults who do not have bank accounts or any means of storing their money or wealth. So, what cryptocurrency does and what a blockchain allows cryptocurrency to do is for people to set up these financial accounts really easily. So, all you really need to set up a like Bitcoin account is just like a phone or a computer and some sort of internet connection. That's it. So you don't have to have any background checks or like, any ID, which is kind of scary, and that's another reason why criminals like using it. But like I said, the good things and bad things about cryptocurrency, and definitely if used for good, it's great for the world, I think. And if you also take into consideration people just hiding money in their mattresses or something, it leads to like robberies and other types of unnecessary violence and conflict, which is created by not having a safe way to store money. And so that kind of is the reason why it could be a good thing for especially underdeveloped countries around the world. who could use this for really good things. So, yeah, so blockchain, it can make businesses more accurate and efficient and secure, all with the lack of any middleman, which is extremely gonna save money. And so, in my mind, I think it's not a question of when companies will adopt this technology, or not if they will, but when they will adopt it, because I think it's going to be something that could be so widely used by every aspect of business and in every part of the world. All right, that's my talk. Okay. Do y'all have any questions? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Hunter, right, first, thank you very much. I've got a lot of birthday candles on my cake, so I don't know a lot of it. That last piece you said about how cryptocurrency helps current businesses, that's really what I was curious about. For example, like investment institutions like Northwestern, usually, right? How are businesses like that responding to the rise of cryptocurrency? For example, they're keeping them honest, or they're competing, working with cryptocurrency, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if businesses choose to adopt it, I think it leads to a lot more transparency within the business, and I think it's something you can always trust and kind of fall back on. I don't think it causes a lot of conflict if they choose to use it.
Yeah, it does. It's interesting in that investors have to pay money to invest their money.
Yeah,
And it seems like this is. Wait a minute, if I don't pay those fees to invest, I can go in this other direction. So.
It's also it's a lot faster. So I think it can take up to an hour to do a trade if you're using cryptocurrency, whereas if it's a different, if it's just a regular trade, it can take a couple of days. Cryptocurrencies don't have any time. It's like a 24-hour, 365 days a year thing. And so you don't have to worry about banks closing on Sunday or something.
Is blockchain just used for money, or can you use for other things?
Yeah.
When you have it on the boat and stuff.
Yeah. So so cryptocurrency it's the biggest use of blockchain, but it's not the only use, right? So like I said, cryptocurrency can't exist without blockchain, but blockchain can exist without cryptocurrency. So yeah, it can keep track of all different types of information. I mean, any type of information that you would log in any kind of database, you can use blockchain for. Yep.
Maybe it's a general misunderstanding of the idea of a cryptocurrency. But in your now expert opinion, could you see in the future where currencies between countries don't exist and there's sort of a universal currency that is a cryptocurrency?
That's definitely far out. That all the currencies would go away. I think it's something that kind of grows in a global sense. So it doesn't really have any country of origin. It's kind of like a around the world currency. So I guess it's kind of globally used currency. I think it'll be a alternative to the typical currencies used in countries, which can sometimes fluctuate a lot and have maybe inflation, and so it's something that could be a safe fallback, kind of gold or something.
Is there anybody in charge of organizing it, or anybody that built it in particular?
So that's okay. So the whole idea of it is that it's decentralized, and so everyone owns it. So like everyone makes up the system that creates it. And I guess for like the Bitcoin specifically, like the people who make the blocks for it, who do the Bitcoin mining, support the system, but that's like millions of computers around the world. So it's not like one place or one person.
It sounds like it's a self-correcting currency that like only gets more trustworthy as it grows and as it's traded. Is there like going to be a time where it becomes more trustworthy than a U.S. dollar backed by just our trust in the Federal Reserve?
I mean, I would say it's getting there, like at that point. I mean, I think it's large enough that it can't be taken down by any kind of organization or anything like that. And so, I mean, not to say that America is going to like collapse anytime soon either, but I do think in the future it'll stay consistent.
How do things like inflation affect cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, I don't. So it itself can change in value, kind of depending on how many people are using it. And I think like the inflation of like the American dollar would probably only impact like how much people are using it. So it could have a direct correlation, but probably not anything significant.
Is it used all over the world, like by other countries?
So if VS doesn't currently accept cryptocurrencies, like stock, money, cash, and things like that. But if we were to, how do I know that the person giving us the money had not procured it through selling drugs or doing something that would make me hesitant about wanting to take it? Is there any way to verify that?
So with like Bitcoin, no. But I think there's different types of cryptocurrencies which might have different levels of information. And so